This week's Martha's Collection feature will be a recap of the last year doing these weekly videos. I will sprinkle a few more in the future, but as far as doing them weekly, this is the last one. A year ago at this time, a follower reached out asking if I would be interested in receiving a donation of a collection. Turns out they were only 20 minutes from where I lived. And to say that I was overwhelmed is an understatement. I literally cried when I first saw the donation. The collection was named Martha's Collection as I believe it was started with the first Martha, we'll call her, who was born in 1837, passed down to subsequent generations, down to her daughter, and then her granddaughter, another Martha, and then her great-granddaughter, another Martha, who was the last caretaker for the collection and passed away a few years ago. So to honor and highlight the collection, I did a feature video each week on one of the items from the collection. So here is a recap of the past year. I find it so interesting that this collection started off, so many years ago and then was built upon with subsequent generations and held on to. And it comprised of a lot of women's clothing, but there was also some children's clothing and a few pieces of men's clothing and some accessories. The items in the collection ranged from the 1850s up to about the 1980s, though in the videos I featured mainly ones from 1930s and earlier. I kept track of where each of the items ended up, and so you'll see a place notated in each of these photos here of where the items ended up. And it's so interesting to see the different parts of the United States as well as around the world where these different items ended up. Some items were purchased by people for study, for pattern research, by collectors, such as in these fans that were in the collection. There were a few garments that I would consider to be wearable with care, but most of them were more for display or pattern study or research. In most of the collection, we weren't sure who the original person was that wore it, but in some cases, such as with that chemise, we did. Some of the items led me down a research to the maker, the dressmakers involved, which was very fascinating. Several garments in the collection had been reworked, remade, and refashioned over the decades. A few garments in the collection featured Minnesota dressmakers. Some garments I put quite a bit of work into to try to rebuild and kind of put back together again, sometimes kind of fashioning new items to go with them. And I feel like some of the things that I've been saving for all these years just worked so perfectly for that. We learned about the influence of military kind of in women's fashion, such as that item there. And there were some marvelous capes included in the collection. With each item that I would research, I learned a little bit more about the family. I learned a little bit more about the garments of the time and gained an even greater appreciation for whether it is the maker of the garment or, in some cases, the person who ended up having to take care of the garments. In several of the videos, I felt that it was important to at least acknowledge the people who made the garments, who did the work, who maintained the garments, who cleaned them, who repaired them. A lot of times that maybe these people were forgotten, but I just wanted it to be known that they were not forgotten and that their hard work is being appreciated and celebrated today. This collection is so wonderful in the different decades that it represents, the different items that it represents, and the things that they were worn for. And I found it so interesting to learn how they were worn with bustles, etc. It was fun to imagine what some of these items would have been worn for, what would have been seen in high society at the time, such as this. This garment here, I learned about what was expected for women to wear during mourning in the Edwardian Victorian era. There were some garments in the collection that were kept by the family, such as that garment there, which would be wonderful to recreate and remake into a new dress. We learned about side saddle riding with that wonderful habit there. From research on this dress, I learned about another Minneapolis dressmaker who worked until she was 84. Some items in the collection lost their other halves long ago, so I kind of paired some together. This one was missing its bottom half, so I kind of recreated a new bottom half for that. A stamp on a buckle led me to research into this mid-1800s money belt. There were so many incredible pieces in the collection, but this one here I did decide to keep as it absolutely has my heart. I love that 1910s dress. I learned that donating to a museum is easier said than done, and that makes sense because they have to be able to properly store the items. So 2 months after I reached out asking if they would be able to accept this as a donation, I did just hear back that yes, they will accept it at the Minnesota History Center as part of their collection, and that makes me happy. I ended the weekly series with a 1927 wedding dress and happily discovering who the original bride was. To be able to see these garments up close, to examine the stitching, these are things that I've only ever seen in museums before, has been an amazing privilege. And I am so grateful for this donation, and I'm so grateful to all of you for following me on this journey and being able to see these things and to share these things right along with me.